We're here at FreedomFest 2023 with Lars Mapstead, who is, what are you doing right now with your spare time?
Running for president in my spare time.
Running for president?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I got tired of not having a choice. I got tired of seeing people so divided in the country, and I just couldn't sit around any longer and just do nothing. So I took up the mantle, and I'm running for president to unrig the system.
Unrig?
Yeah.
Unpack that.
Well, everybody has an idea of why the system is rigged. Maybe it's the healthcare system, maybe it's the economy, maybe it's the criminal justice system. And there's so many areas in our system that is unfair. And we want to bring common sense solutions to make the system fair again for all people. Right now it seems to be just set up for corporations and elites to profit and to have a better life, but the common people are not having a good time of it, and they're suffering.
All right, go ahead and look at the camera and give your pitch. Where can people find you?
Yeah, Lars24.com. You can also find me, Lars for President, on Facebook, or Libertarian Lars on Twitter.
Okay, and they can vote for you if they want to unrig.
Yep.
All right. So, Lars, what we're doing here at Freedom Fest is we're talking to people about this. And we have a message called human respect. I'm going to break this down in just a second, but we have a message called human respect. And we have a test that we've been doing with this approach that has been getting 80% of people who complete it, regardless of their ideology, to say, I wish there was no coercion. It's a pretty big deal, right?
Yeah, I wish there was no coercion. I'll say it right now. You don't even have to convince me anymore.
Okay. So what we want to do is have a conversation with people, and I want to share that conversation with you as a libertarian, that we're having with the people here, so you get a feel for what it is. So I'm going to do it with you, just like you're a subject, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you let me know. But here's where we start. We usually start by telling them we're having a discussion about values and ethics.
Okay.
And values are the things you hold personally. These are the things of who you are. Ethics is how we interact with one another. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
And so with the values, we're not looking to change. In fact, we emphasize when we sit down and first start talking to people that we're not looking to change anything about them.
Okay.
So if you're progressive, be as progressive as you are now. Be more progressive. We're fine with that. If you're conservative, that's fantastic too. Where the trouble comes in is where they start to use coercion, right? Because when they use coercion, they end up doing this. But when they're persuasion, they start trying to find new solutions. Now, they can still be one of these and find new solutions. We're not a partisan group. We're not taking a position here on that.
Okay.
What we want people to start to do is start to get creative and start to look for ways that they can do stuff in a more voluntary or inventive or creative way to solve social problems, as opposed to going where everybody always tends to go, which is to ask some politician to lift the burden off their shoulder.
Yeah, it's easier for people to get other people to do their bidding and to do the dirty work than to basically take care of things themselves. And so oftentimes we look to government for solutions, and government often has a heavy hand, authoritarian hand in coercion, basically, against people.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll we like to start off with a question.
Okay.
Does everyone want to be happy?
I think everybody does want to be happy, yeah.
Okay. Would you say that's a primary motivation?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let me run you through 3 quick questions. Are you ever happier? Is anyone ever happier? But are you ever happier? If someone were to steal from you, defraud you, vandalize your property, would that make you happier?
No, obviously not.
Always? I mean, consistent?
Always. Yeah, I think that's pretty universal.
Okay.
Yeah.
If someone were to physically harm you in some way, even kill you, you wouldn't be around necessarily. But the thought of it.
Yeah. No, obviously that's not going to make me happy at all.
Okay. Do you think you're unique, or do you think everyone here is the same in those 2 respects?
I think everybody's. Yeah, that's universal, I think.
Always.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're always going to be less happy if they're harmed. They're always going to be less happy if their property is damaged or stolen.
Yeah, and I think that's the Constitution, right? That's what America is founded on, right? Protecting our liberties, protecting our life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right?
The pursuit of happiness. Yeah. That's really what we want to talk about here today. Okay. In fact, now that we can see those 3 things, they're constants. They're universal statements, right?
Yeah.
And since we can see that, there's probably a principle in here somewhere. And here's what I mean by principle. So a lot of people, when they talk about principle, they mean, here's my highest value. I will never hurt somebody. I will always answer the phone on the second ring, right? They've got some high value that's extremely important to them that they live their lives by. That's the normal way people use principle, but there's another way, which is more scientific in nature, which says that there's a cause and effect relationship somewhere out there in the universe, and we can always observe it.
Okay.
Right? So if you have an object in your hand and you let it go, what happens to it?
Drops.
Yes, and why?
Gravity.
Gravity, right? And you probably don't have the formula memorized off the top of your head for how fast it falls.
No.
But we know that that's what happens because we would be able to build buildings and bridges, we would be able to walk, cars, the whole thing. The world would be really different if we didn't have it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what that's the kind of principle we're talking about here, okay? So we believe there's a principle, we call it the principle of human respect, that is consistent in social interactions.
Okay.
All right, here's the principle. Happiness, harmony, and prosperity will always decline when someone steals from someone or harms them physically.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
It'll always decline, right?
Yes.
Always?
Yes.
Okay. Let me pause for just a second, because again, you're a libertarian. I'm going to need you to play along on the next part. I'm going to need you to pretend you're either a progressive or a conservative.
Oh boy.
Which one do you prefer to be?
Ooh. Somewhere in the middle? I don't know. Yeah, I can pretend. I don't even really want to pick because that's not me.
That's not you?
I'm not a conservative or a progressive.
Okay.
I'm a middle of the road kind of guy. I've always been that way, and I think there's some things in both ideologies that I agree with, and there's lots of things that I disagree with on both sides. So I've always felt like a person in the middle, and I've never felt represented because there isn't a middle. And you have to pick right or left, and that isn't me.
So now when you say that you're in the middle of these things, what you're talking about though is probably the values, right?
I mean, yes.
You wouldn't be looking to impose those values.
No, of course not. No, of course not. No, I think that's the difference between myself and the other two things is that I look at everything through a lens of government coercion. Does it increase government coercion? Is it people trying to tell me how to live my life? And I believe that people know how to live their lives better than the government does in almost every way.
Okay.
And so, that's the difference between a libertarian and a progressive and a conservative. It's not a right or left thing. It's an up and down thing. It's authoritarian versus libertarian. And that's the opposites.
You don't want to reverse that?
Okay.
I'd like us at the top.
Okay. Libertarian at the top.
So there's like this dividing line,
Yeah.
right? Where people, here they're using force.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But here they're not.
Yes.
Right? They're choosing creative solutions. And so what we tend to do here in these conversations next is first walk people through an example of an issue that they feel has been imposed upon them. So if we're talking to a conservative, we'll talk about the bad things progressives are doing to them, things they don't like. And,
Sure.
Right? And they feel that. They feel that really in an emotive way.
Yep.
Right? They're right here. And so we go through something like that. We walk them through how that feels, and we ask them to start helping. Let's say it's a conservative. We ask them to start helping a progressive come up with a better solution that doesn't involve twisting their arm or coercion or whatever.
Yep.
Okay? And then we flip the tables on them, and we take them through how a progressive feels when they impose their values through coercive force, which is a much more difficult exercise for them, even though they just went through an exercise where they felt it for themselves. But having felt it for themselves, many of them are able to start to come up with creative solutions for policies they're carrying out now.
Yeah.
And so they start to see that it's possible to live in a world with at least less coercion, but hopefully with none. So we call the none position the principled position. It means that you've completely gotten the fact that, like gravity, every time you initiate force, you're going to diminish happiness, harmony, and prosperity. Every time. There's no exceptions to that.
Yeah.
So when people make policy exceptions, what would that mean?
Well, it's really hard to find any reason for government to coerce people. But if you're killing somebody, then I think government has a right to step in and make right. If you're harming other people, you're taking their stuff, all the things that you were talking about, and this left-right paradigm is the division, right? Everybody feels a moral high ground when it's them telling other people how to live their lives, right? But when other people are telling them how to live their lives, they feel oppressed. They feel like, that's what the division in America is all about, right? And so we need to end that government coercion as much as possible because it makes people angry and upset, and we see it We see it with the George Floyd riots. We see it with the January 6th events. People are angry and upset because they feel the government is attacking them and that other people are using the government force to make them behave a certain way.
So that's very good that you said all that. So the happiness, harmony, and prosperity were the three things I talked about. You just described the diminishment of harmony, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to feel good about somebody who's using violence against you. And so we already know that automatically it's just going to happen, like gravity, that people are going to be less in less harmony if someone's using force against them.
Yeah, and the part of the issue too is that this is government, so it's a anonymous source, right?
Yes.
You don't. If another person, if you came at me and you were trying to use force against me, it would be very personal, right? But when people use government force, when groups use government force, it becomes very anonymous, and that makes people very agitated because they don't feel like they have any way to change the outcome, right? And that's a lot about what I'm talking about, unrig the system, because people feel the whole system is rigged against them and they can't change the outcome. And so we need to give people the tools to change the outcome for themselves. And I think that's what America was all about, right? Was that we are trying to, pursue life, liberty, and happiness, right? And so, yeah, I think government coercion, not
so
good.
What are your plans to reduce coercion? How are you going to go about doing that?
Well, I think, right now, I think a lot of people, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, people feel that the voting system is rigged, right? And they feel the voting system is rigged in different ways. But I feel that we can't have a republic if the foundation that we're built on is shattered, right? And right now, no one trusts the system. No one trusts the voting system. And if we can't trust the voting system, we can't trust the people that are elected. We have lose faith in the whole system. So I want to really look at that base level stuff, ranked choice voting, term limits, ending primaries, ballot access, equal and fair ballot access for all contenders, whether they be an independent, a libertarian, or Republican. They should all be the same, right? I'm also looking at nationwide federal election laws that would essentially, I'm a big states' rights fan, but I think that for federal elections, we need to have some continuity so that people trust the system.
Okay. So we take this principle, last thing, we take this principle, which says that anytime someone initiates violence or steals from someone, they're going to diminish their happiness, harmony, and prosperity. And we turn this into a moral principle. We go back to the other definition of principle, which is that we're going to carry this out. This is how we're going to live our lives. And we've found that this message, I'll give you a copy of this card when we're done here. We found that this division, beginning to explain to people, we've been able to create open-minded conversations with people who are not yet libertarian, who are not yet what we would call voluntarist. They're not ready to make that leap. But after we start this conversation, it starts a new way of thinking and a new way of observing the world. And so I would encourage you to check this out and use it.
I definitely will.
In your campaign, particularly if you're talking to somebody who's not yet a libertarian.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, Lars Mapstead, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.